On today's World Insight, all systems go for the Winter Olympics a month before the opening ceremony. As the Beijing 2022 organizing committee puts the finishing touches for the Games, what did it take to prepare everything? The hurdles and triumphs. And art and creativity, the shining beacon of inspiration, hope in dark times. For that spark of artistry, insights from two prize-winning architects, a celebrated photographer, and a 20th century creative force.
Here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. As we come to the 1 month countdown to the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, it's all systems going rolling out the red carpet for athletes from around the world. The spokesperson of the Beijing 2022 Organizing Committee, Zhao Weidong, said on Wednesday preparations have been completed as scheduled and operations are currently running well. Meanwhile, amid a resurgent Omicron-filled pandemic, the Beijing Olympic Organizing Committee is taking no chances with the safety of athletes and staff. An exclusive lowdown on preparations and his first-time ice skating experience from Mr. Zhao. Here's that conversation I had earlier with him. Tell me more about what kind of preparations we're doing for the last mile almost.
It's true that we're quite busy. We are now in a race against time. The opening and closing ceremonies that we are preparing with great urgency and care. These events are of great global interest, and I think you will be in for a nice surprise when the time comes.
A nice surprise. What kind of nice surprise would that be? I remember very clearly before the Beijing 2008 Olympic Games, there were a lot of different voices about the game, but once the opening ceremony started, everything comes into line. So people really wonder about this opening ceremony.
I think I'll leave it until the opening ceremony is officially held. Of course, there are some differences between the opening ceremony this time and the opening and closing ceremonies of 2008. After all, it is held amid a global pandemic, so we will cut out some unnecessary parts, but I think it'll be just as good.
Looking forward to it.
There is also the job of organizing the sports events and providing service support. As you know, the Olympic Games is a sports pageant with more than 2,800 athletes to compete with one another. So the organization of the event is very important to us, especially in the context of the global pandemic. Therefore, how to organize the event well and how to provide quality services to the athletes and all the invitees is one of the key tasks we are working on at the moment.
So how are you preparing for the best performances of every athlete participating in the Winter Games?
你这个问题提得非常好。我们从筹办之初呢，就确立了以运动员为中心的。
Good question. We have established the principle of putting athletes at the center from the very beginning. Our work is about providing quality services for athletes. As we all know, athletes come here to compete in certain venues, so we put a lot of effort in the construction of the venues. For example, the newly built National Speed Skating Oval is also known as the Ice Belt. We've laid the best ice in the hopes that athletes can skate at the fastest speed. We have even tested the rink in a recent test competition.
还有你看，在测试赛过程当中，我们首都体育馆的短道速滑。
During the test competition, Dutch athletes achieved their best results in the short track speed skating at the Capital Stadium. Chinese athletes also got their best ever results. This is what we do for the athletes, providing high quality facilities to unleash their full potential.
另外呢，你也知道，疫情是对我们这次奥运会的一个很大的考验。那么我们
As you know, The pandemic represents a major test for us in holding the Games. Together with the IOC and the IPC, we've developed 2 editions of playbooks, which are to ensure the smooth running of the event while ensuring the safety of all parties.
2版防疫手册当中呢，我们都是有2本。如果你注意到有2本
There are 2 editions of the playbook. Each edition has its own book. One is for the athletes and their officials, and the other is for the interested parties. So, our epidemic prevention efforts are athlete-centered.
为中心另外呢，我们在这个气象服务方面
Since the Winter Olympic Games are likely to be affected by the weather, especially the snow sports, we have established a well-conceived weather monitoring system in Yanqing and Jiangjiakou to provide precise weather forecasts on a minute-by-minute basis and to an accuracy of 100 meters in elevation, so as to ensure that we can schedule the competition in a timely and reasonable manner according to the weather conditions and to give the athletes reasonable expectations.
使运动员呢有一个合理的预期。
Talking about predictability, there is enormous unpredictability as a result of COVID-19. One of the things is whether we're going to have audience and what is going to be the relationship in the space between the audience and the athletes. Tell us more about that.
我们从和这个
On September 30th, along with the IOC and the IPC, we announced key policies on epidemic prevention and control, which clearly state that tickets will not be sold to spectators outside China or those subject to epidemic control measures within China. During the test competitions, we also had 2 trial runs for spectators, and the results are good from what we have seen so far.
现在情况来看呢，效果是好的另外呢，我们在10月
In addition, we issued 2 editions of the playbooks on October 25th and December 13th. These 2 playbooks have set out all the specific measures for the prevention and control of the epidemic. For example, we have set up several key measures, such as the remote prevention and control measures. In terms of remote control and prevention for inbound personnel, they have to carry out health monitoring at least 14 days before their departure for China. They need to report their health results on an app called My 2022 every day. They need to conduct 2 nucleic acid tests within 96 hours before their departure. They can only board the plane when the results are negative.
做2次核酸只有全部阴性之后才能登机这是远端防控。另外呢，我们认为呢，疫苗是防疫的一个重要。
Moreover, we believe that vaccines are an important means of epidemic prevention. So this time we have also clarified policies on vaccination. Except for a few medically exempt athletes who can enter the closed-loop management directly after being assessed by the experts, all other inbound personnel have to be fully vaccinated. Those who are not vaccinated have to stay in quarantine for 21 days. We strongly recommend them to take booster shots. We have also put in place effective measures after they enter China. For example, the only entry point we have established in China is the Beijing Capital International Airport. After arriving at the Capital International Airport, the inbound passengers have to undergo a COVID test. They can only carry on with their business in China when the test result is negative. Another very important feature in our policies is the strict closed-loop management. In the closed-loop management system, a closed loop has been formed through dedicated transportation tools between various venues of the Winter Olympics. All Olympic-related personnel work and live within the closed loop to ensure they are separated from the other members of the Chinese society.
确保和中国的社会面分割开。
As the 2022 Olympic and Paralympic Winter Games are just around the corner, Chinese are taking up winter sports in droves. Ski resorts, skating rinks, and many other winter sports venues around the nation are gearing up to welcome millions of visitors. 5 years ago, though, there were only 460 ski resorts in China. Now, there are nearly 800. To make skiing more accessible to the public, the whole country ramped up the construction of ski facilities. And some 2,000 primary and secondary schools across the nation have included winter sports in their curriculum. China is aiming to get 300 million people involved in games on the snow and ice. many people are very curious about, Olympic Games under the new geopolitical landscape. Whether it will be politicized, whether it is fair to politicize Olympic Games. When the torch is being lit up, what should we have in mind in a way? How should we appreciate a real Olympic Games?
当今世界呢，人类面临的越来越多的共同的挑战，越来越成为一个命运的共同体。
In today's world, humanity is facing more and more common challenges and is increasingly becoming a community of a shared future. This requires us to stay united and join hands to meet the challenges all together. As a global sports event, the Olympic Games itself is a stage for athletes and sports fans from all over the world. On this stage, people from different countries can become more united. That's why the IOC has added the word together to the Olympic motto this year, which I think is of particular significance. In an article that I recently read, Mr. Bach says that Beijing will be the first city ever in Olympic history to host both the winter and summer editions of the Olympic Games. The Olympic Winter Games of Beijing 2022 will be a moment to bring the world together in a spirit of peace, solidarity, and friendship. I very much agree with this statement. However, we've noticed that a few countries have already announced that they would not send officials to the Beijing Winter Olympic Games. But we've seen that a great majority of countries have shown a strong desire to participate in the Games, and many more global citizens have shown a strong interest in the Games. When the Olympic torch is lit up, and when the Winter Olympics in Beijing is a success through the joint efforts of athletes and everyone in the world, the confrontational views that resist the Games and the proponents of politicizing sports will naturally disappear.
不和谐的这种声音，一些将体育政治化的一些主张会自然消弭的。
China participated starting from 1980. Lake Placido, I remember that. However, it was years later before the first gold was won. Of course, Olympic Games is not just about winning the gold medals, but rather participating. But how do you expect? You're a Chinese yourself, even though you are working for the organizing committee. So how do you expect the performance of the Chinese team, Team China?
中国呢参加
Like you said, China's participation in the Winter Olympics predates its participation in the Summer Olympics. China first participated in the Winter Olympics of Lake Placid of the United States in 1980. Then in 1984, China participated in the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. As for the question of how do I look forward to the performance of Chinese athletes this time, I think we should leave it until the end of the Beijing Winter Olympics. We all look forward to the best performance of Chinese athletes and athletes from all over the world.
China has, in a way, illustrated the possibility of 300 million, 400 million people onto the ice, onto the snow. This is going to be a huge boost, of course, for the Winter Olympic cause. But, what is the reality looking at China's overall geographical and the weather situation? How do you expect that to happen, Mr. Zhao?
中国呢是一个体育大国。
I think China is a big country for sports. In the process of preparing for the Winter Olympic Games, China also rallied behind getting more people participating in winter sports. In other words, we hope to lead 300 million people to take up ice and snow sports through the preparation of the Beijing Winter Games. We can now see in China that this goal is gradually becoming a reality. In the past, winter sports were mainly popular in northern China, especially in the northeastern provinces. But now, we also find indoor skating rinks in places as far south as Shenzhen. Personally speaking, I am also a beneficiary.
So what kind of sports do you take?
When I was a kid, I had no idea about winter sports. During these years of preparation for the Beijing Winter Olympics, I also benefited from the rising popularity of ice and snow sports in China. For example, I learned to ski and occasionally skied on the intermediate slopes.
Wow, congratulations. How long did you learn in order to make that happen? I'm trying to learn, but I'm not, a little bit clumsy.
用了大概半年多吧。
It took me about half a year. Of course, I'm still an amateur and a long way behind those professionals. In the process of preparing for the Winter Olympic Games, I've become part of the 300 million people who have taken up winter sports.
What
was it like for you when you feel, I could really ski now?
第一次上滑道的时候呢，是摔了几跤，
The first time I went on the slopes, I fell a few times and was very frustrated. After skiing several times, I gradually got the hang of it and realized the charm of skiing.
滑雪的魅力。
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhao. All the best to your work and certainly to the Beijing Winter Olympic Games. Spokesperson for the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics. You're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Coming up, art and creativity, the shining beacon of inspiration, hope in dark times. For that spark of artistry, insights from two prize-winning architects, a celebrated photographer, and a 20th century creative force. Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Culture knows no borders. It's the very richness and diversity of culture that lends people inspiration, connection, and hope in changing times. Today, we bring you a series of interviews of artists and minstrels who breathed new life into a troubled world. First, meet Anna Ackerton and Jean-Philippe Vassal, two French architects honored with the 2021 Pritzker Architecture Prize. Their designs make the most of space, light, and nature while providing a comfortable living environment. And then we turn to photography to see how the lensman Platon has been a creative force through his prolific vivid pictures. Last but not least, the story of Andy Warhol, an exemplary American artist of the 20th century who turned a can of soup into a creative icon. Let's listen in. Congratulations from this part of the world.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You sound very calm for being the winner of such a grand architecture award. I guess that's your style. And in that sense, let me ask you the first question. All of the changes we have in our world today, the pandemic, the geopolitics, the social disruption, what do you think all of these are having on the real thinking of architecture that you have these days?
We are more and more sure that we have to analyze the situations more and more precisely, more and more locally, and with a great attention to the specific situations, particular situations, and to try to avoid a standard answer, but to be very, very precise and delicate, and sensible and poetic.
Yes, this period reminds us also the importance as well as the fragility of the humans. And it's clear that more than ever, the architecture must take care about that and must be more comfortable, more pleasant, and taking more care to humans. And for us, it's something that we want to go through and go towards that.
We believe that architecture is an art. And as an art, it has precisely to avoid all standard answers, all already determined answers. But each time there is a new ideas to develop precisely in function of the situations.
This is the guy behind the scenes taking photo of everyone, all those important moments. But now we can see you, the guy behind the scenes. That's really something.
I'm a storyteller, and I care deeply about, at this time of global division, I care deeply about people coming together, working together, connecting and bridge building. And I think as we rebuild the new world, I think we have to rebuild with a different mindset. And so if I can use stories to bring people back together, then I'm happy to be in front of the camera temporarily.
I thought I was just talking to a photographer. Apparently it's not.
I photographed the most powerful people in the world, and I became known as the photographer of power. I think they tell me that I photographed more world leaders than anyone in history in a private sitting. So I've seen it up close and very personal. You know, I mean, it's like going to the dentist. You know, it's intimate. You know, I was an inch and a half away from Putin's nose as I focused my camera. So you feel his breath on your hand when you're working in that intimate way, and you get close to someone. But I've also had the great privilege in life to photograph people who have been robbed of power, and people who care deeply about human rights, and people who have made great sacrifices for the sake of others. And so I've seen both sides of the spectrum. And it's a very strange perspective to have, you know, to be able to go to the top of the power pyramid, right? And then go all the way to the people who have not been heard at the base. So it's a great privilege to have that perspective.
These are the most well-known works.
Yes, this is a total breakthrough for Warhol when he started doing these in the early 1960s. I think a lot of people were quite confused because he was coming from this background where he was already a commercial illustrator, and then he decided to paint this everyday object, right, the soup can. But I think he was always interested in, you know, the potential of the everyday commodity, right, how it made people's lives a little happier, what it might represent, and also I think most importantly, how it's this totally standard experience that people have across all different classes and races and ages, right? I mean, anyone, you've spent time in America, anyone who's lived in America has probably had Campbell's soup, even we don't think it's very good, but especially in the 1960s.
I was trying to read the flavors, by the way.
Yeah, it's very 60s. Hot dog bean.
Right.
Yeah.
Think about the time when he traveled to Beijing. China just reformed and opened up. Everybody in blue and green suits. Actually, he was also saying, I don't mind wearing blue. Actually, I enjoyed it. And he did almost every day, the same wardrobe, even when sleeping in the Beijing hotel. So Patrick, how do all of these stories resonate with your audience, their understanding about China and also China through an artist's eyes?
We're very proud of Andy Warhol here in Pittsburgh. So the idea of presenting Warhol's work around the world, but particularly in China, is a great source of pride for all of us here, because we believe that Andy was the prototypical American artist, that he was an artist who really typified what it is to be an American, to be interested in fame and success, but also to have a deep history with his family. So I think for us, it's been this extraordinary thing to think of all of these new visitors in China getting to see Andy's work.
Right. Phil, artists are influenced and impacted by geopolitics and everything around them as well. How do you see, you know, a rediscovering, in a way, of Andy Warhol among your audience?
I think that at this time of rebalancing and rediscovery and reopening, it's important to try and go a little bit deeper. You know, there's been exchange between these countries and these cultures for, you know, since we're 50 years past Kissinger's visit, right, and 40 years past this Warhol's visit. But there's always more to discover and more to learn, and I think that's one thing that this show is able to do. This is not a show that's being down to its audience, and it's not a show that's trying to put some things in front of people and have them come and, you know, worship them or pay their respect. It's really trying to provide a very open platform for people to learn something about another time and place that is relevant to their time and their place, because there's so much in how Warhol saw himself and how he saw the world that's relevant, to America today and to China today.
Great stories. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight to check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us.